Kansas added another offensive lineman, this time from the JUCO ranks, and a very powerful offensive tackle.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. You can find us on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe. You can find us anywhere that you get your audio side of things with the podcast. Bonus episode on today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks as we talk a little Antonio Wilson. He is the newest addition to the KU football team. Immediate help possibly on the offensive line for KU. We're going to talk about what he brings to the table and kind of the pulse on the KU offensive line room. Is it concerning at all that they're adding somebody this late in the game, or is it not? Is it more of a future piece? So we'll get to all that on today's bonus episode of the show. And let's start with just the news. That is about Antonio Wilson. He is a 6'6", 320-pound offensive lineman, though I think on his own Twitter profile, he calls himself 305 pounds. So regardless, good frame, 6'6", over 300 pounds. He's originally from Orlando, Florida, went to Jones High School, and then he attended Garden City Community College. And I don't know, because there's like a recruiting profile of an Antonio Wilson from Orlando, Florida. Now, I mean, that's not the craziest name in the world, and Orlando is a huge city. That's like the class of 2022 for high school, which wouldn't totally add up here unless, and he had offers. That kid, again, it could be the same one, could be different. I don't know. That one had offers for like Arkansas and Kentucky. So is it possible that that's the same guy and he took like a gap year and then he had a redshirt year at Garden City and then he had a year of play? It could be him, might be not. I'm not entirely sure. What I do know is that he will be a redshirt sophomore in the fall of 2025, which means he'll have 3 seasons left to play for KU. It also means since he's already redshirted, he doesn't really need to take a redshirt at KU. Then again, with this whole JUCO ruling, with the Diego Pavia stuff, because right now it doesn't seem like the NCAA is saying that both of your JUCO years don't count. They're just saying that like one of the years don't count. Then again, are they just saying it was the 1 year Pavia was in school? Does that get changed if somebody else sues? Does it get changed where none of the JUCO years count? I don't know how that's going to work. So I guess you leave it open that there's a possibility that Wilson theoretically could have 4 years left at Kansas, but at the very least that we know, 3 years left to play for him at the very minimum. He did have offers at a JUCO, Arkansas State, East Carolina, Texas State, Marshall, and many other kind of G5 offers for Wilson, but he ends up picking KU. So what exactly does he bring to the table, and how does he fit in with the KU offensive line room? What does it mean for the KU offensive line room? Let's get to that next. This bonus episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. They have all-in-one convenience where instead of juggling multiple apps and you're popping between this and no, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Monarch Money. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out our regular episode today. We talked a little bit about the international market for Bill Self going abroad to try to maybe pick up another splash move if they can't hypothetically land a Darian Williams or something like that, and who are some possible players to look at from that perspective. Okay, so KU adds Antonio Wilson, 6'6" offensive tackle from Garden City Community College to the roster. Here's what he brings to the table. I mean, obviously at 6'6", he brings Power 5 level length and frame if you can fill it out the right way. Now, being somebody who's over 300 pounds already, he is pretty well filled out, right? So maybe for Kansas, I mean, I'm sure they're going to get to know more about, okay, maybe we need to add more, muscle mass to his arms or his legs or whatever plan they want to put him on, or maybe we want to do this with his diet, right? Like they're going to figure that out, but he does come in more ready to play in terms of body wise than somebody who comes in as a true freshman from high school who's 260 pounds and needs to add 40 pounds to get on the field. Like you don't have to worry about that as much with this kid who comes in a little bit more ready from that regard. So watching some of his highlights, like, this is a very powerful offensive lineman. This is a very powerful player. The highlights, the films that I watched, he played both tackle spots on the left and right side. So that's nice to see for a couple of reasons. One, the tackle spots are typically the hardest, the spots that you're kind of left on the island the most as a player, where if you're playing the tackle spots, usually, those end up being kind of the most important positions because they're the toughest to play. So that is a good thing to see. But also the fact that he is playing both sides of the tackle spots, right? The fact that he is somebody who has the versatility to play both, because Kansas loves guys that can play both positions, because it allows you to almost extend your depth to a certain point. Like, if you have backups who can only play one position, then you have to have a backup for every position. Then you have to feel comfortable about 10 guys on the offensive line. Versus if you have a player who's good at multiple spots, then maybe you only have to feel like you feel good at 7 or 8 of your offensive line spots. Ideally, you'd like to feel great about 15 guys, obviously, but it doesn't always work out that way. Some guys are injured, some guys aren't ready, some guys need more time to develop, and it gives you more opportunity. Plus, if it's a good enough player, it gives you more opportunity to get that player on the field if they can play multiple different spots. So that is a good thing to see there too. But again, from watching the film, from watching the highlights, very powerful player. And I wonder if he profiles better as a run blocker than a pass blocker. From watching highlights, especially of an offensive lineman, you're not going to realize how good a player is as well. Like, if you watch a receiver or running back with highlights, again, that doesn't tell everything too, but you can at least see the potential in terms of the, what's their speed versus other players. Are they breaking tackles? How's, their vision here or there? And again, with running backs, like, it doesn't show the whole thing. Like, how are they as a pass blocker? How are they, in terms of falling forward always? And in terms of seeing that vision on every play, you can't see all of those by a highlight package. It's even harder though with offensive linemen. Yes, you can see the pure strength and you can see some of the top plays of the pancakes, but like with linemen, if a quarterback, you can almost go look at their stats and be like, okay, this is their completion percentage. How accurate are they, right? It doesn't tell the whole story, but it gives you a hint. You don't see stats for high schoolers and junior college offensive linemen about what was their win rate? How many sacks did they give up? So it's a little bit harder. But based on what I saw, I think there were a few times that I saw, like, okay, maybe a defensive end with good bend or good speed on the outside was able to kind of get by him in a favorable way. But there were some times where defensive linemen tried to go into his body, tried to maybe get a swim move to get to the inside, or just tried to bull rush through him, and he wasn't having it. Down the guy goes. Then in the run blocking game, you saw the power really come to play and him be able to bulldoze and truck guys over. So just based on that, I almost do wonder, is he going to be somebody who's better? If you get a speed rusher against him, that could be problematic. But if it's power rusher or if it's running game, those are going to be his strengths for his game. And now, does he end up working to the inside? If you're a better run blocker than pass blocker, sometimes those guys become guards a little more often than tackles. Or is the fact that he was or can be with a 6'6", frame, that he has potential to be a tackle, and also the fact that he was at least good against bull rushers and power rushers and guys coming inside, maybe that makes him okay to be a tackle, right? So it kind of just depends what you want to do with him. But I do like the idea of bringing this kid in. He clearly has the frame for powerful football. And one of my favorite things with offensive linemen is the ones who are consistently blocking to the end of the whistle. Guys who, you don't want them crossing that line. There is obviously a line there, but you want your offensive linemen to be mean. You want them to be nasty on the field. And then when the whistle blows, sure, be a great dude, be smart, know what you're doing, right? But he wants to get pancakes. He wants to finish the block. He wants to pile drive guys into the ground. And you see that on the highlight tape. And I really do like the addition for that very reason, that you have a guy who clearly shows that ability, who shows that strength, who has the frame, and obviously has a lot of years left of play, up to 3 years, maybe more if you can get a JUCO ruling in your favor. So how exactly does he fit into the offensive line room for this year, and how does he fit into the future? We're going to discuss those next on Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of LOJ. So when you look at the offensive line room for KU, obviously part of it will depend, does he figure in as a guard or a tackle? Is he a swing player that can play either? I view him, based on his JUCO playing, as like a swing tackle. You can play him at either tackle position. You look at this year's roster, though, I am under the assumption right now that Calvin Clements and Enrique Cruz Jr., your transfer addition from Syracuse, that those would be your two starting tackles on this year's team. But beyond that, kind of wide open for who your swing tackle, who your backup tackle would be. I think Nolan Gorchika is going to have a real chance to start at guard. Now, it could go to Tavaki Tuikolovatu. Maybe it goes to a guy like Amir Herring or something like that. And maybe Gorchika ends up being your swing. He can play guard or tackle off the bench for you, right? And give you versatility. But if Gorchika does end up starting, then who's the backup tackle? Again, does Tuikolovatu, can he play tackle? I don't know. I view him more as a guard. So you're looking at Jack Tanner, who's a transfer you brought in from Tulsa, played a lot as a freshman, but, mixed results there, might need more time under his belt to get ready to play for KU. You're talking about a bunch of players who redshirted last year as true freshmen, Cardinal Lavrusky, David Abajian, who I think was injured, Graydon Grimes, who kind of rotating between what position is he going to play for Kansas. And then you have guys who it's like, okay, are they going to be guards or tackles? James Livingston, Tavaki Tuikolovatu. So point being, Wilson is not somebody that I like. DeAndre Harper would fit that billing as well, right? Wilson is not somebody that I'm necessarily going to expect to get a ton of playing time this year coming over this late in the game. But knowing that there are some questions there and who's going to take down those spots, and that we haven't heard a lot of glowing reviews, not that we've heard bad reviews, we just haven't heard the glowing reviews from a lot of these young players. Does that mean that Wilson could be on the two deep as soon as this season, right? And then if you're talking down the road, Enrique Cruz Jr. graduates at the end of the season, he's a senior, spots up for grabs. Like, could he do enough in his first year, right? And I think like Dominic Pooney, as good as he was for Kansas coming from D2, was almost, as much as it's a good story for guys to be able to, okay, he was a late addition to the game, came from a relatively unknown, and he was a beast. Could that be Wilson? Sure. It also almost serves as a bit of it's almost like it's too tempting of something where it's like, well, this guy he could just be that. It's like, okay, but not every player you bring from a lower level late in the game is going to turn into an NFL draft pick who's starting day one in the NFL for the 49ers. Like, that stuff is pretty rare. You know what I mean? So don't necessarily count on that, but I do like the potential that they have from Wilson. Like I said, I don't know how ready he's going to be able to play right away, but I think Kansas is in the boat with a lot of guys as far as the depth of their offensive line. I don't know how many guys they have ready to play right away, so somebody's going to get thrown to the fire. Could it be Wilson? Maybe. And could Wilson be a long-term solution for KU on the tackle position as well? Yes. Now, is it a little bit worrisome that they're bringing somebody in this late in the game? Does that necessarily indicate that maybe they don't feel great about the depth of the offensive line? They don't feel great about some of the future pieces and what they could provide to the table? It's entirely possible, right? It's also possible that you don't feel great about somebody now, and then in a year from now, they take a bigger jump than you might have expected to. So kind of remains to be seen, but, you can never have enough offensive linemen. Get as much depth as possible. Get as much depth that can help you now and in the future, and I think they did that with Antonio Wilson. All right, that'll do it for this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out our regular show, and thank you if you already did for being an everydayer. See you next time on Locked On Jayhawks.